y'all, it's Terri from Sisterhood of the Traveling Brush, and I want to show you today a finish that I really love, which is a faux granite. I first did it on the countertops in my kitchen, but you can definitely do it on furniture and other things as well, so I think it'll be a lot of fun. I use the Johnny Granite products. You can get it like at Home Depot or Amazon. I'll give you some links, or just go to johnnygranite.com. You don't have to use this, but I like trusting them, like with the Iron Core primer and their special top coats, and then they have minerals in the paints here that they use, but I do mix in the Dixie Belle paints with that as well. But what we'll be doing on this first coat, I did just want to show you that the kit comes with the roller and the sponges, and it doesn't come with 2 sponges, but you cut these. I had more than one kit, and this one was called Sicilian Sand, but we're going to use some of our own colors in there. It comes with the roller. I'm working on an old Victrola, and I started painting on the bottom of that. I love using this to run the tape and the paper because you can switch out the tape. Since I just painted this yesterday, the bottom part, I like to use the yellow frog tape, which is for delicate, recently painted surfaces. So I'll have a link on there if you want to check that out. It saves me a bunch of time and effort. And they also send a second, like a foam roller with this, but I really like to use this flat, it's not a roller, but this Sure line thing when I'm doing my top coat, so I'll show you that in a minute. So what we're going to start with, normally you don't prime. This is an old Victrola that belonged to my dad, and this does, lift up. I'll fix that and worry about the inner parts of that at another time. But it was very old and damaged on top, water damage and a lot of things. So I used the Dixie Belle White Lightning, which is like a TSP product, and cleaned until I was tired of cleaning. Then I sanded a little bit, and I worried about releasing tannins and things like that from underneath. And I think there are a little bit of brown spots maybe there. So I did use their Boss blocks out stains and stops bleed through primer on here. But if your surface didn't need that, the Johnny products don't require a primer. The Dixie Belle products don't require a primer. This particular top just required one because it's old and damaged. So probably won't be able to see my head from back here. I'm gonna use this Sherline roller pan and then the Iron Core primer. I like this because it is a strong base coat, and the reason that I'm doing this on here is, now and then you have a piece that is going to have a high traffic surface. This has a smell to it. This is not chalky tops, like top paint. This is something that is meant to grab a hold of slick surfaces and give them a tough coat. I have knocked this off here. This yellow tape is not that strong, but that's the reason that you use it, so that it doesn't damage your freshly painted finish underneath. But anyway, you don't have to buy that kit, but they do sell these paints individually. So if you just wanted to order this Iron Core primer and their top coat, I'll send you a link for the ones that came with this particular kit. Or, the kit's easy, but you just cover the surface. So if you wanted to try this with regular black paint, I'm sure it would give you the same black finish and the same black look everywhere, but I don't know that it would give you the same type of tough surface protection that this gives. Hello, I'm back. It's been 24 hours since we put the iron coat on. It's dry. You only have to let it dry for 8 hours, but I went home and came back. I'm at my work studio. So the next step is going to be dabbing on with the sponge the colors that we choose to use. We're going to go from darkest to lightest, and they're going to need to dry a little bit in between the coats so that we don't end up with a muddy look on there. I have this ball of a sponge and I'm cutting it now into smaller pieces. You can use a paper plate, whatever container that you have. These are called boats. You get them at the restaurant supply store. So I'm going to use a little boat. I'm going to use the chocolate brown first, then back to the Pinecone, which is the color we have on bottom. Then I chose Putty as my third color. And I still have the gravel road that I'm going to use to put a little bit of veining in the end. I love the brown family. This is a very nice one. Now this could be grays, browns, tans. It could be pinks, I guess, if you were wanting a pink granite. Anything that you want to do, and that's entirely too much. What we want to do is make sure that we have a little bit of space to unload and a little bit of space to offload the paint. I'm going to put this lid on and grab myself another boat just in case I need it to offload because I put so much paint. The technique that they teach you if you were doing this for countertops is to lightly go and do in a square motion, just a small, like a 2x2 area all over. The way that I like to do it, to give it a little bit of, I don't know, flair, I guess, and to give myself something to not be bored about. Okay, I've unloaded. I'm going to offload some. See about how much comes back off. But rather than go square, I'm going to think about where later I'm going to put the vein, and thinking I'm going to come in on this side and come over and around a little bit. So I'm going to, you don't want the pattern to show up too dark or straight lines or anything like that. So you turn it this way, that way, the other way as you're putting it on. Looks like that's not showing as well. I'm going to bring it a little closer. I'll get out of the picture and just point down to where you can see it. So I'm just thinking about where I'm going to want that veining to be later. Here's one thing you have to be careful of. I have a little bit of a swirl right here. That's because I twisted before I picked it up. So that may take a second. It always takes me a second to get in the groove. But you always want to pick it up before you twist it. I'm just sort of pouncing. Okay, now you could dispose of this sponge. I will wash the sponge and save it, but that's the end of step 2. We'll come back and put step 3. And we're back. We now are going to the Pinecone, which is the color we used on the bottom of the body to tie it all together. And we're going to do the same exact thing that we did with the chocolate brown one, but this time we're using a smaller and different shaped sponge. Pour a little in. How about that for not being getting wasteful. I don't know if that's going to be enough or not, but we can always refill it. And we're going to just do the same exact thing that we did the first time. And because I'm a weirdo that way, we're going to start back here, just like we did the first time as well. That's it for this layer. Okay, I'm back, and here's what we have. Here we have the lightest color, which is the Putty, Dixie Belle Putty, and I have a little bit more of the Pinecone out, a little bit more of the chocolate brown out, and it can get scary for a minute if you're not wanting to get too light with the lightest color. And I have another hunk of the sponge that's dry for blending in the end. So we're gonna do sort of the same thing that we've been doing. Set this aside. This is a fresh piece of the sponge that I have here, but I'm not going to get a whole lot on it. Second color sort of tones down the last color a little. We're going to come back with what was the first color, which was the chocolate brown, our deepest color. I'll lightly go over it again, doing the same exact thing. And this really helps to tone it down and get those colors to blend with each other just a little bit. This is when it really starts to look authentic. Now I'm going to come in with our blank sponge. And I'm just tapping. That really does look like a piece of granite. That just blows me away how that happens. Okay, see the difference in here as we move over, how that little bit of last minute touches makes a world of difference. We're going to do the same thing on the middle portion. The light can show up so much, so I'm really working hard to make sure that I offload some. to go ahead on in while that's still damp, because this is a little bit scary here. We're going to come in with the veining, and this color has not been used in here at all. It's not as dark as a black. You may put a little black too. And there's no rhyme or reason to this where it should go. If you don't even have to put it, you could be done right now exactly like that. But to me, this is the part that kind of can bring it over the top a little. Use my smaller brush first. These are just artist brushes. This is a liner brush. This one is an angled brush. I want this semi-straight and semi-crooked, so we're wanting it to look like it was a crack in the finish. Scary part. I'm going to try to tap at it. Just started to sand it so thick down there. Because you just want the faint idea of a crack. Back into my lightest color, and I barely want to. Do the same thing with the darker color, the chocolate brown. That looks like a real aged crack, and we will let this dry and at least a couple of hours, and then we have the gloss top coat that will go on next. So, hi y'all, I'm back. It's dry, and we're going to do the last couple of parts, or the first of the last, because it's going to take 2 coats of this high gloss finish. I'm not always a fan of high gloss, but it looks really good on here and makes this look very authentic. I'm doing this part first because it's recommended that you let it soak into your roller for a minute or so before you start to get it good and saturated. So I'm going to get a good bit of it in there. Squishing my roller around in it a little bit. And set this aside. The other part that we'll do before we put the top coat on is to sand it down a little bit to knock off any bumps or lumps or rough edges or anything like that. I'm just using a regular sanding pad for that. And going very easy at it, just kind of making sure there's nothing raised or sticking out anywhere. I'm not doing like a hard sand or anything. I'm definitely not trying to distress or anything like that. Just using my hand to feel if there's any rub spot anywhere. Don't spill anything. I'm going to wipe the dust off of there with the little rag that I've got here, so that we'll get a good smooth finish with the top coat. So I'm very happy with the paint line that goes through. I'm going to get off the excess. This goes on a little bit of a pale blue color, but it does dry clear. First thing I'm going to do, because of the shape of this, gosh, I love those rollers, is just get this back edge. When you're rolling on this, you're going to try to roll from one side to the other, staying in the same direction, and raised up a little bit on the area where you're going over the next area, and pushing more toward the area that you haven't done yet, so that any line of excess is always being pushed away to be used next. That's all for this portion. I will come back when this dries and we'll put on that last top coat and then take some pictures of the finished project. Hey y'all, I'm back. This has dried overnight with the first coat of the high gloss top coat on it. So you can see it's actually not high gloss, as you know, shiny per se. But I wanted to get the last coat of the top coat on it today. And this is what I call the sponge brush yesterday, but what's a foam brush is what it really should have been called. I got these at the dollar store this morning, the Dollar Tree, so it doesn't have to be expensive, and you can feel okay about yourself throwing this one away and not being wasteful. But I also had told you I was going to show you this, which is what I like to normally put my top coats on with, and I'm not exactly sure what it's called, but I'll find you a link for it. I love putting on top coat with that, and it fits real good in this little bucket. It didn't come together, but it looks like it could have. This is called a thumb pail, which is awesome because it lets you evenly distribute the weight there whenever you're holding this, and it's not going to collapse or anything, and your thumb just goes in it. Pretty smart. Pretty smart little get up there. Here. It's not going to take a whole lot. This has a little bit of texture to it. At this point, you could use a brown paper bag or a very fine grit, something over 200 grit sandpaper if you wanted to make sure that this has, let's go ahead and do it, that this has a little bit of grit power to it to take this second coat. There. I'm going to do this. I'll make sure this is good in here for you. This back edge first. This is not my ideal choosing of a brush in most instances, but in this instance it's fabulous. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and go, because I have this crease right here, I'm going to go ahead and get it in that with this brush as well. This has a magnet that would hold this if there was any metal on the ferrule there. I'm just gonna try to put in that other one I have on the floor there. You could, you know, put a lot more in here, of course, than I did. Just gonna tilt it forward and get myself some. This filled it about halfway up. Probably would have been good to let it sink in for a minute the same way we did on the other one. But here's how this goes. Up here, just kind of fade that in. Sorry, my big old head's in the way. Okay, that's it. This is going to dry and this will be done. I'm going to let it obviously I'm going to pull this off, finish the decorative parts of the front of it and the back and sides and all that, and get it looking good while I'm waiting now. And then it will be ready to go back out and be put into use. Because it will get heavy use here in the coffee shop area, I want put it out there for 30 days. I don't want it to get, you know, I don't want to do all this work and put this effort into it and then have it, you know, something happen to the finish later. So you would definitely want to think about that with your customers too. If you're doing this for a client, you could be doing it for yourself, but you know, you don't want to put this much time and effort into doing something different and then damage it because you don't have the patience later on. So I would give it at least a couple of weeks before I'm going to stage it after 24 hours, then take all that stuff back on it, put light things on it after a couple of weeks, and then, you know, treat it like the surface that it is after the month. So if you have any questions, just let me know, and thanks for watching.